This is the Coracobrachialis. It's the third of three cranial brachial muscles that we covered. The first two were the biceps brachii and the brachialis. If you haven't watched those videos, there's a link in the description so you can check them out. The Coracobrachialis originates here on the scapula, on the coracoid process. So this is the medial view of the scapula. So this is the forelimb or the foreleg of the dog. This is the medial side of the scapula, the medial side of the humerus. And the Coracobrachialis originates here on the coracoid process, on the scapula. The coracoid process used to actually be a separate bone in animals, the coracoid bone, but now the coracoid process is just a remnant of the bone that used to be there. Although that bone does exist in certain animals, like monotremines, I believe is how you say it, like the platypus, that species of animals, they actually do still have a coracoid bone, but most animals do not, but they still have a coracoid process on their scapula. So the Coracobrachialis originates there. The tendon itself is encased in a synovial sheath. So the synovial sheath goes over the tendon, and that allows for smooth movement. It reduces friction, so that's obviously really good for the tendon health. It's a fairly long tendon here that passes across the lesser tubercle of the humerus. The tendon itself is actually crossing over the subscapularis tendon of insertion. So we're going to go ahead and draw in a few of the muscles that surround the Coracobrachialis that are kind of relevant to our discussion here. So the subscapularis is up here on the medial side of the scapula. We will do a video on that at some point. But for now, it's coming down and it's inserting here into the humerus, on the proximal humerus. And so it's inserting via tendon, and the Coracobrachialis is actually going over that tendon. So that's good to keep in mind. The muscle itself is fairly short, it's fairly thick, it's spindle-shaped, and it moves distally about a quarter of the way down the humerus or so. The Coracobrachialis muscle inserts here by a tendon into the crest of the lesser tubercle, which is actually going to be, we'll draw a few other locations around it to give a bit more of a reference. So this insertion of the Coracobrachialis is going to be a little bit proximal and a little bit caudal to the insertion of the teres major and the latissimus dorsi, their conjoined tendon of insertion, which is going to be here on the teres major tuberosity. So we'll draw that in purple here, and then we'll go in and we'll draw in the muscles of the teres major just really roughly here coming down, and the latissimus dorsi coming in, and those muscles in their tendon are going to insert here. They're going to cross over the Coracobrachialis a little bit. There is also the medial head of the triceps, which is going to be located between these two muscles, so between the tendon of insertion of the teres major and the latissimus dorsi, and between the insertion of the Coracobrachialis. So right in here, that's the medial head of the tricep, and that's going to come down here toward the ulna, down the humerus. So that's some of the muscles that surround the Coracobrachialis that are important to know. We could also draw in the biceps brachii, as we saw in another video. That's going to be up here on the supraglenoid tubercle of the scapula, and that's going to then come down via a long tendon here through the intertubercular groove, and then come down the medial side of the humerus. So those are some of the more important muscles to know around the Coracobrachialis that relate to its muscle and tendon directly, or at least a little bit indirectly. The Coracobrachialis, along with the biceps brachii and the brachialis, is innervated by the musculocutaneous nerve. That's partially why we group those muscles together. So the Coracobrachialis, as far as its action, it is a shoulder adductor. So you can see here, it's on the medial side of the scapula. It's going to play a role when it contracts of bringing the humerus, bringing the foreleg toward the midline of the dog, bringing it medially. So it's going to be an adductor, that's ADD duction. It's also going to play a minor role in active shoulder stabilization. The shoulder in the dog is an incongruent joint. It doesn't fit together perfectly. It's a fairly unstable joint, and so a lot of the ligaments around it are not strong enough to stabilize the joint, so it relies a lot on tendons and muscles around it to stabilize the joint. So the glenohumeral joint relies on the coracobrachialis to play a minor role in stabilization of the shoulder. The coracobrachialis also plays a small role in extension of the forelimb. So extension, again, this is cranial here, this is caudal here, so this is the head of the dog up here, the tail of the dog down here. So it's going to bring it shoulder into extension, bring it forward for the dog. And you can see here, based on its cranial attachment on the scapula, how that could be possible, even though it does have a bit more of a caudal insertion here on the humerus. I don't think that's a major role. Obviously, there are a lot of other muscles, some of which we talked about, like the biceps brachii, which plays a bigger role in shoulder extension, and the brachiocephalicus coming down the neck into the humerus, that plays a big role in shoulder extension. We'll cover that muscle at some point. It's a very important muscle for the dog. If you're enjoying learning more about some of these smaller, less significant muscles and the more significant muscles in the dog, then please go ahead and subscribe, because there's lots more to come.